Bonjour, bonjour. Les rencontres professionnelles reprennent. Sinon, on va être vraiment à la bourre.
Please go back to your seats. We are going to resume our session. So this afternoon we will be talking about the international market of digital arts, MIAN in French. So this is the format that was imported from our colleagues from Quebec. And we will have many artists who will be doing presentations for 10 minutes each to talk to you about their projects, the most current projects. So we don't really have the Q&A session that is foreseen as such. Nevertheless, please feel free to go and talk to these artists at the end of this day or contact them by email. The very first person to speak will be Jeroen Juntendale, and his art is mostly related to sound and its relation to light, space, and materiality. This is translated into development of audiovisual instruments, installations, and sound composition. He also is a co-founder of Initiative. It's an artist-run platform specialized in inventing new instruments and presentation formats that engage with the four dimensions of image, sound, space, and body.
Lire à partir du début. C'est bon, on est bon.
Hello. Yes, hello. Thank you for inviting me, everyone. My name is Jeroen Uitendale. I'm an artist from Brussels. I will just go and do a run-through of a few works I've been making the last years. I started making work 15 years ago already, after my study radio in Brussels. After that, I studied art science. My work is mostly centered around sound, but then sound in relation to other media. Could be a question about visualizing sound, about in relation to space, in relation to media, to materiality. So I develop either installations, compositions, music compositions, electronic instruments, everything sort of related to sound as a sculptural medium, as a sort of physical medium. So the first work I'm showing, what you see now, is Ground. It's a work I started already in 2007 together with Davy de Vree. He's a Dutch artist. And Ground is an electronic instrument in which I'm using graphite as an interface. So, sorry. Graphite is a conductor for electricity, and in this installation I'm connecting it to self-made electronic analog instruments. I was very much interested in visualizing electronic music, visualizing sound, and drawing was, I think, for me, the most basic way of visualizing something. So basically what we did is we made a lot of different drawings with different shapes, and each shape was kind of connected to a different sound, and with each shape we had different possibilities of performing or creating sounds. In this case you see a big, large sheet of paper, but we also played with other forms. Like in this case we have the sheet of paper, but we also project it on the back so everyone can see what's going on. In this case, this is what we used most, is two big sketchbooks. And in a performance we went from page to page, and each page has a certain sound and a certain performative quality. So we toured with that a lot of times. We collected a lot of sketchbooks with different drawings and performances throughout the years. So in this case also, the materiality, the visualization is very important to me. And also the fact that it's not really clean, that things go wrong, that it's not really something that you know beforehand what's going to happen. So it's, there's always something new coming up when you play it. This installation is called Vonkveld or Sparkfield. This is an installation, so not really an instrument. In this installation, I worked with the spark, with electricity, as an instrument in a way. And what I made is actually an installation where I have 5 sculptures made out of a speaker, and on the speaker there is a metal rod. When the speaker is playing sound, the metal rod moves. Around the rod there is metal woven around. And if the rod is moving and the speaker is making sound, then electricity is transmitted through the rod and you get sparks. The sound that's going through the speaker is actually radio waves that are created by the sparks going to the speakers. So it's kind of a self-regulating system in a way. I found sparks really interesting because it's emitting sound and light at the same time. So it's really one unity. So there's no difference between sound and image. It's really one thing. And it's also very materialistic. It's very tangible in a way, yeah? And also very crude, a crude thing. Also, depending on the material what I'm using, sometimes I'm using magnesium or metal, copper. You get different colors and different shapes of sparks. This is another spark field, but in a completely different form. It's actually a table with a lot of different rods, and each rod is controlled individually. And when the table is on and when it's moving, it's also creating sparks. So with this installation, I try to create a sort of very basic animation with sparks, that you have lines of sparks coming from the end to the middle, trying to create shapes that didn't work completely. It was really basic, but the idea was to create a very primitive animation in a way, in which you also produce image, but also sound at the same time. Yeah. Okay, 5. This is Planescape. It's a collaboration with 3 other artists in which I did the sound. Planescape is an installation where we fill up space with elastics hanged vertically, and we project animated lines on it, so that the lines are diffracted into points, and you create from a 2D image a 3D image. So it's really like an immersive installation where you can live in, you can stay in for as long as you want. We made like a abstract animation that lasts around 40 minutes and is just running all the time. So this was in Stuk in Leuven a few years ago at Artefact Festival. Avlas is an installation, it's more like an instrument, again like ground, in which I'm using a metal plate as a resonator, but also as a reflector of light. And I'm projecting animations, abstract animations, but also passing sound through the plate, and the animations are reflected on the same plate. So if I bend the plate, I touch it, and I move it, then the image is also changed. So also in this case, you have this relationship between image and sound, and you're manipulating the image and the sound by touching the metal plate and by moving the plate itself. Yeah. Yeah. Well. Okay, this is an installation I'm working at the moment on. It's a speaking mirror. It's an installation for the center of Brussels. It's going to be it's going to be there for at least 10 years or maybe longer. It's actually a mirror that emits sound. In this case, the sound is not made by me. It will be made by several artists and other people. But I thought about the mirror for this installation because it was a very interesting object to reflect, because a mirror in a space really lets you sort of reflect about yourself and your position in the space itself. In this case, I'm not making any sound or music. It's really the design of a sculpture, of a speaker in a way. Okay. Okay, I have another 2 minutes. This is also an installation I'm working on at the moment. This is a bit more abstract of what I showed before. It's called tabling. Again, it's a performance and an installation which I'm interested in tangibility and the visualization of sound of electronic music. What I'm doing in this installation is I'm passing sound, it could be sine waves, feedback, field recordings through different kinds of objects. And these objects are filtering or altering the sounds. And by moving the objects in the installation, I'm manipulating the sound itself. So to close off, I have a little video of tabling that I can play. This was recorded in Stuk in Leuven. Thank you.
Merci, Jeroen.
Thank you very much, Jeroen. And right now, I would like to give the floor to Claire Williams. And her artwork is basically at the crossroads of the craft as well as the technologies. So she basically tries to capture different evolutions of the electromagnetic movements through the magnetosphere movements. She's basically sculptures her electronic components to make visible the electromagnetic movements from the cosmos through our magnetoscope to radio waves that cross our terrestrial environment or the ones emanating from our bodies. It's up to you, Claire.
Okay, here I'm going to introduce to you the telepaths and installation that is supported by the Federation installation of a largo numeric. So this installation, I started from, interrogations on how humans in their state of hypnosis or a comatose status navigate in spaces, train spaces, and you can do parallels of also the state of somnolence of machines like our computers that travel as electromagnetic waves, and trying to imagine how to give a rendition and a materiality of these states of somnolence. And neuroscientists try to explore these questions and provide us with scientific answers, and they create instruments and tools to try and measure based on headsets that measure the electromagnetic activity emanating from our brain, measuring the state of consciousness of awakeness. So the idea really was to how to work with this, and I was interested at some point in reflecting on an installation that could try to capture the materiality of such things. And I worked with the hospital in Liège, where they had a research group and giga consciousness groups, a center where they work on states of consciousness at different levels. And I worked with the department in charge of patients that are in a deep coma state. And I collected the recordings of the for patients who have been in a coma for 16 years or sometimes for 3 months. And based on their EEGs, I tried to get a device that would enable me to reread those frequencies and translate them into light pulses, and mechanical also sounds. And I'll show you a short video, 15 minutes of recordings of the neuronal state of the person, of a person who is in a deep coma. So René Hassel. And so this installation has 45 glass pieces, and I also worked with a school of glass blowing, and I also, scientific tubes, glass tubes, and I collected these 45 pieces that represents one space of the brain, the frontal cortex, for instance. So, and each glass piece has magnetic bobbins, coils, where you will have a mechanical translation of the sound coming through those coils. And just to illustrate how these spectral states can be illustrated. So the machines can emit electromagnetic sounds like our brains, and I got from stories of Vladimir Vernadsky, who imagined the neosphere, a sphere which would be, as in the biosphere, a place where you can imagine all our thoughts in some kind of a, planetary pot. And all the research around occult issues, and how all of these questions can activate questions that might enable us to understand. So here are the photographs of our curves in the workshop, and trying to understand all the things that are behind all those cables and electronic circuits. And this is a program that we worked on relating those EEGs, the delta waves 0, 5 to 4, 4, very deep coma state, a moment when the body does not respond at all. And the question is, at the University Hospital of Liège, we had Luttig, we had this question of do the bodies respond at all. And we have we went all the way to the theta waves in a literally trying to get the EEG and translate it into sound or light images. So it's a view of the technical installation. So you have to imagine a table of 2 meters where you have 45 glass pieces that are put in it. And well, I was asked to be quick, so that's it. Thank you.
Merci Claire. La prochaine intervenante est Justine
So
Aymar.
thank you, Claire. And the next one is Justine Aymar, and she is exploring the relationship with existence and technology and the various technologies of image. Well, by combining different image technologies, she situates her work in a flow combining robotics, neuroscience, organic life, and artificial intelligence. In 2020, she's in resident at the ZKM. At the 2022, she'll be in resident at the Observatoire de l'Espace, a cultural lab for the CNES, and guest artist professor at the Frénois Studio National des Arts Contemporains.
Hello, everyone. Yes, thank you very much for this short intro, and thank you for having given me the time for the presentation. So I'm Justine Aymar, and I'm an artist and a plastical artist as well. I am using a lot of different mediums, but I'm creating forms and shapes that most of the time are at the intersection, at the crossroads of many different disciplines. And I'm applying the artistic and scientific approach, like the technologies of perception, robotics, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, organic life, and so on. And all the installations that I have are originating in the learning between the human and the machine. So this is the idea that we can basically learn from one another, and we can learn from other forms of life. And this is also the question of the emergence of different forms of life, which is quite central in my practice. I'm creating protocols for the creation of each and every of my installation. And I'm working a lot with the labs, scientific labs, to create the tools for measuring and just for my artwork. So I'm basically developing processes that are based on the encephalographic captations and images, these scans in 3D databases that are quite elaborated and so on. So basically, it's a dialogue between the human being and the machine. And this is basically what I'm showing you right now. These are the pics from the exhibitions that I have made, and this is available on my website. I have also done some artworks that are part of the international and national collections, and I'm also very interested in the preservation of the digital art and digital pictures. This is something that is very important for me, and this is something that allowed me to introduce neurosynchronia, and this is an installation. So I actually basically wanted to show you a selection of my artwork, which is done around the world of neuroscience in collaboration with someone. So what is this dimension that is presented here? So this is a performance that we are presenting at Grenier, and I decided to talk to you about Neurosynchronia, which is a 3D real-time installation, which is a public order of the National Center of Plastic Arts, because here I'm asking myself this question: what is the picture, what is the photography, what is the image? So this is the project where I'm very much interested, in which I'm very much interested, and I found it absolutely fascinating to work with the brain and with visual cortex, which is the part that is at the very, which is situated behind in our head. And it's very interesting for me to look at this visual system that is recomposed by the system of our brain, and it allows us to see the world and to perceive the world, this cortex. So I was working with the interface of brain machines that allows us to look at the different waves, and the neural targets become markers that are interpreted later on by the computers that allow us to really evaluate and recreate the interactions. So this is the installation that is neuroreactive, and this is a non-eric exploration of the way the pictures appear in our mind, which actually recreates the ex imaginatio world, starting from the 3D reality, which is reconfigured for each and every visitor for each unique experience. So it's basically like getting into contact with your own brain through this cinematographic tool, basically by crossing the immaterial world with all those pictures that appears here. And I would like to show you the brief video. So this is the installation that comes from the topographic information in the landscapes of the imaginary world where the human being modified the environment very strongly. So I was working from the places that were very interesting from the point of view of the landscape. And the theme of the Biennale is around night, which is why I wanted to strengthen or underline the research that I was doing around the dream. So actually I have this research which is about what is the dream. Dream is a psychic long absence when we are disconnecting from the real world, and wherever we are physically on the earth, we are basically disappearing. And this is something that is very strange. And this is when these dreams appear, this subconscious manifestation. And this is something that has been used a lot by the neuroscientific world during this recent years, because they were basically looking at the functions that it gives to our biological cycle. And I have started my research around dreams and tracing of dreams. And right after the lockdown, I have also created some sculptures that are coming from my own dreams. So basically, I took myself as an example, as a pilot project for the research in order to study my own dreams in the research institute, to study what are the different brain waves that appear there and all the signals that my body is emitting throughout the night. And I was able to transcribe all the phases of a dream through the 3D printing, through the sculptures that were materialized here. So basically you can see all this architecture of the dream, of my dreams, that are created through this robotics, through this 3D printing. So basically there is all this choreographed process by the robots to draw all this basically practically archaeological layers that compose these sculptures. It's also a performance on its own, and I have interpreted this work in collaboration with a company, Rico, that is developing a very unique treatment of the printed picture, 2.5D, and this is a Japanese company, and they have started this process of treating pictures. So basically we're here between the process of printing of pictures and of 3D, and this is the expo in Ginza around 3 dreams. And you actually have to know that in Japan there is this practice of lucid dreaming, which is very much anchored in their culture. And this is something that is very, very popular there. And the very last project that I wanted to talk to you about is Hyperfantasia. And it actually comes from the origins of the picture. And this is part of the installation that I have developed as an artist throughout my, during my residence in Knes. And the fantasia in Greek, this is the word that means a picture and imagination as well as representation, but there is also this dimension of light and apparition, which are part of this term. What I'm interested in this idea of the origin of the picture is to be able to connect, to go and find where the pictures come from, what is this origin of the images. And for me, there are many ways here. So first of all, there is this direction, the picture that appears on the surface of our visual cortex in the brain, but also we have the very first images of humanity. And I was able to work with the conservation project of the cave Chauvet in France, and this is this mythical cave that has been discovered quite recently, and it is much older than the cave Lascaux, which is much more well known. But this cave Chauvet goes back to 34,000 years before Christ. So there is a very important number of engravings and paintings in this cave, and we were able to analyze all of them. And there is this database that I have used here, and I have defined it for the preservation of this cave. And in this process, I have trained the neural network to generate new images here. So there was this new process of work that I did with Jean-Michel Jeunesse, who was the curator of the cave Lascaux and Chauvet, and we basically wanted to look at how we could preserve all of this and how we could create a dialogue around it in order to create an artwork that will make sense with respect to this ecosystem. So we have this narrative line of the machine that is here, and the machine is learning. And in my working process, I actually like to leave some space for the learning process of the machine, for this machine learning, and also to leave some space to the errors, because I think that sometimes this is something that is very moving, very touching. And I have this very big scenario of different images that we can find in the cave. We have imprints of different people and drawings with a piece of coal in the cave Chauvet. And it's always in new configurations that are presented, but there is also the geomorphology of the cave itself that also defines the space for the audience, for the spectator. And I would like to show you a short video once again with respect to this project. And then we also have these shapes that you can see in front of you that are structuring the image, and they are also defining the space of the cave. These are the structures, the sculptures that are printed in 3D that come from the dreams of the astronauts. Because when I was at residency at CNES, I was working with Rachel Debs, and she is the neurologist, which works on and she works on the mission Alpha. And I was able to have the access to the data of encephalographic data that was recorded during the sleep time of the astronauts who were on the mission. And it was absolutely fantastic because I actually could have access to the dreams in the space. So we had this database of 23 dreams that were dreamt in the space above our heads. And this was the process of work that I have already elaborated from my own dreams, and I have basically used it in this creation and retranscribed it here with all the encephalographic signals that are in less high resolution than what is possible to do on Earth. But thanks to the technology of miniaturization, electrodes, and different EEG tools, we can also take this technology to the space. So this is a very interesting project because the mission of CNES was only here to validate this tool. So they were extremely happy that an artist was able to use this tool to create something. And without wasting more time, because I only have 1 minute, I would like to talk to you about our performance live dream, which was done in collaboration with Jean de Rosnay, who is present here, that we are representing in Grelier-Sel this Saturday and this Sunday. That is a performance, a live performance that also has sound and image, and we are connecting the audience directly to the system thanks to the electrodes, and we are doing this whole brain activity of the spectator, which is the base of the creation and of the performance itself. It actually becomes so. So this is the project that I would like to invite you to come and discover. So the premiere will happen tomorrow evening in Grenier-Sel. And if you are also very interested in this, on March 14th, we are organizing with the lab Artantech and Stereolux a day that is dedicated to this new experimentation of the neuroscience and science and artists. Thank you very much.
Merci Justine.
Thank you, Justine. So the next speaker is not with us today. It is Pierre Verneck, who is a sound and musical artist, and he designs installations and has audiovisual performances using objects and the use of internet and video. Even though technology is omnipresent in his creations, it is always veiled to give space, and his practice where many found objects find a second life that is influenced by his observations over time and its effect on matters. He's not with us, but he sent us a short video to introduce his current news and give us an update. Visual performance that lets the viewers participate and explores our habits online. The play is structured around the scrolling the feed and a landscape of merchandised flux in which artists, the public, through an app and AI can generate content. And this automated and mechanical feed is deconstructed gradually to reveal an auction and invites the participation of the public. The performance shall be structured to push participants to sell their data, and this shall be executed through a handling, manipulation of prices and the actual or current tactics used to generate some buzz around the product. Information, data, media, photos, and videos supplied by spectators are sent, uploaded on a server, and reorganized into posts and uploaded automatically on computers by artists who are on stage. For example, the answers to the quiz shall be worked through an algorithm generating GPT in order to produce a text followed by what could later be associated to a photo or video that shall be modified by AI. And this is a little bit like I lost the last.
Welcome to
the end product.
So conceptual trove or treasure, the capitalism, surveillance, and merchandising of data. What is the value of information? And if the user was placed in front of a real decision where he had the real agency in the decisions and understands the stakes, to what amount would he or she value our data? What are the services that are offered for free and that have, in effect, as much value as non-free?
and then part of
So the public should be invited to access the site on their phones. For the sellers to sell their data, interface with the artists, and on stage the artists should use an interface.
And yeah, so I was fortunate to go to Davidson College, a small liberal arts college. Welcome to
So here are his recent projects.
Emit is only an intermediate.
The partners.
the end product.
The work is supported by Le Conseil des Arts du Canada, the region Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes, and the residents, artist
end
residents,
product.
were supported by AML's Portable and Recto Verso, and the contact info on the left.
Basically, try to be the voice for the innocent animals who have. What's that?
Scary.
Pardon. Notre prochaine intervenante
Okay,
est la
and the next
manager de
speaker is the
Vertank,
manager
Anouk
of
Fauquier.
Vertank,
Vertank
Anouk
est une
Fauquier.
plateforme de production
Vertank
d'art
is a
dont la
media
mission
art
principale
production
est la
platform, and their
réalisation
main
et la
mission is the
distribution
production and
d'installations
distribution of
artistiques
art
qui
installations
étudient la
that
relation entre
investigate the
technologie et
relationship between
perception.
technology and
Vertank
perception.
fonctionne comme un
Vertank
outil de travail
functions
pour l'artiste
as a working
et met
tool
son
for the
expertise
artist,
à la
and it
disposition
makes
des
its
artistes.
expertise
Elle
available
les
to
accompagne
artists.
à travers toutes les
They
phases du
accompany
processus de
the
création.
artists through all phases of the creative process. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for welcoming us here, me, Eline, and my team. Me, Kurt, and Eline, we are basically the responsibles of Vertang. I will continue in English.
A platform for production and distribution of media arts, focusing on both artisanal and analog technologies and the latest knowledge and new media. And this oftentimes means that the result is the merging of those two. And therefore, as you can see, our subtitle is Factory for New and Old Media Art. Werktank was established in 2010, so we're pretty young, and I think that refers to the introduction that Lisa made this morning. The art scene is pretty young in Belgium. So we're established in 2010 by artists Kurt Dazeleer and Yves Spinsemaaie. In Leuven, it's a city 20 minutes drive from Brussels, where we have our offices, our workshop. We also have a residency space and a black box, which we open to artists, open for experiment and production. Now, as the founders of Werktank are artists, this is pretty important for us because we have always had this strong focus on the artist and the artist practice. And we really are creating possibilities for the needs of this art practice. Werktank operates on the intersection of science, technology, and art, and we're looking at all those fields with two eyes, so both a critical eye and a poetic eye. And this look is pretty broad, so we both experiment with, for example, 3D clay printers. We have made productions in Unreal. We researched even how we can make French fries from scratch. And we reflect upon the impact of the evolution of technology on privacy and data. So this all seems quite a stretch, but all those projects are more than welcome within Werktank. The results are often, as you can see here, it's actually one of the latest productions that we made with American-Belgium artist Hassib Ahmed. Oftentimes these productions result in physical objects, installations, performances, and digital creations. So each year, each year, Werktank invites a number of artists who we select through different sources. So we have an open call, or we try to have open calls on a regular basis, but we also prospect or we consult the organizations within our network, or we are open to questions from the artistic field. If there is a need or a question to collaborate. And as you can see here, you see actually also a pretty recent production by MIAN Jour, and if I'm not mistaken, she's from Marseille originally, and we had Lauriane with us last year in residency, and this was on her request. So this is kind of the dynamic that we try to establish. Now, when artists come to Werktank or when we set up a collaboration, we try to support them on what I call the 4 pillars. Artistic-wise, production, technological support, and financial management support. And this means that we are actually able to support a production literally from A to Z and that we share our knowledge with the artists, but also vice versa. Now, before I'm super proud of our Werktank team. We really try to collaborate together because as a team, we try to establish or to try to realize a lot of projects. Now, fun fact, when I was making this presentation, I asked them, could you perhaps send me a portrait so that I can properly introduce you, even if you're not here? So I have the impression that Werktank really sets a new definition of what a portrait basically is, because it's sometimes pretty hard to see who's in the picture. So I will help you. This is Kurt Dazeleer. He's an artist, and maybe you know him because he oftentimes collaborates with French composer Franck Vigroux. And he's one of the co-founders of Werktank. So he has his own practice, which is partially embedded within our structure, and he's our artistic director. Together here with me, I'm sorry, Lane, I picked out this picture, but you sent it to me with your consent. So Lane is our head of production. She's actually the point of contact of the artists that we collaborate with, and she will guide the artists from A to Z through the entire production. This really is Yves Pinsemeijer. He's an artist who is actually presenting here at Chronique Biennale with a new production that we supported, and he's our technical coordinator. Totally invisible, but still there. Enna Hali is our temporal assistant administrative. She is reducing our administrative vortex to the absolute minimum. And she is there to translate and redact. And last but not least, Laureline Sobry, she is our freelance Code 23 lead project. And I will be speaking on the Code project that we're into. It's actually an international project that we are into with several Dutch and German partners, and I will be speaking on that on Saturday. So this is the team that we work with, and we try to realize the productions as to the best we can. So the goal is that through collaboration with Werktank, the artists can make a step or a next step into their practice. That's why we see ourselves as a stepping stone for an artist. And in order to realize this, Werktank does not only offer the possibility of producing, but we also offer different kind of trajectories, because an artist's practice also needs these different kind of trajectories. So, for example, we offer, of course, besides a full production, we offer co-productions through our partners. We have residencies, both in Belgium and abroad. We also try to realize lectures and artist talks through our partners. We organize every year a public art festival, and we share the curatorial position with the artists in our network. So this is really like a very broad selection of trajectories that we think are necessary to offer for an artist's practice to grow further. And what we try to do is also by offering all these trajectories, this also allows us to follow an artist's practice on a longer period of time, so that we are not like, let's say, a one-stop shop for just one production, but that we can follow them and create a long-term relationship with each artist that we collaborate with. I will give you maybe two examples of how this works. I earlier showed you Lauriane Jobert. Lauriane came to us for a period of 6 months. She made a production, and through the partners in our network, we were able to present her work at IMAL, for example, and then now at Kick Festival. So this means that through the network, through the partners that we collaborate with, we can ensure, or we try to ensure at least, that every production that we make will get an output, it will get an audience, it will get a network. Same goes, and I'm happy that Pierre is here with us as well. This artwork by Pierre, which Werktank produced as we continue, is on show here. And we have a pretty long trajectory with Pierre, and I think you did quite all the trajectories that we offer at Werktank. So it started with a residency from which this production came. Then Pierre could go to our partners at Recto Verso in Quebec for another residency. A new project was created there, was presented at Moi Multi. Then also you could have a lecture at the Academy of Leuven to speak on your artistic research. And you were also our curator of our annual Zomertank Public Arts Festival. So this is what we try to do, that it's more than just one production. And once a production is completed, which usually takes like about a year, we also, and this is our second, this is the second part of what we do at the Werktank, we do not only produce, but we also distribute, which kind of ensures that everything that is being made within our structure gets an output, and not only an output, not only an audience, but also a network, which we try to establish to make sure that the artists who work with us can, as I said before, have a next step, a next or a broader network where he or she can then further work into. And this we can only establish because we collaborate, because we're open to collaborations. And this is my last slide. So if you're interested in collaborating, we are here and we're happy to hear you. Thank you.
So thank you, Anouk. Now time for us to take a little break, and let's meet again at 3:30 with Felix Lucas Sanchez and Pierre Coric, and we shall connect to Quebec in order to discover the projects of Catherine Melanson and Nelia Labotte. So see you at 3:30.
On va reprendre avec notre prochain intervenant.
So we will start, and the next person will be Félix Luque Sanchez, and his work is done in collaboration with Damien Jarret and Vincent Rimvrard, and they explore how humans conceive their relationship with technology, and they also look at the development of different technologies and imagination. They are using fiction processes that are between fiction and reality, and they are also looking at the different possible scenarios in the very close future, and they are also confronting all the fears and the expectations about what machines can do.
So thank you for the invitation. So I'm going to read a text and I'm going to introduce the project that we are exhibiting right now, and I'm going to give a broader view of this project. So industrial works are they are realized without fatigue, without loss of concentration, or without no incitation. So controlling of automation gives a synchronic symphony. So what we want to do is, set stage robots in perpetual works. So when human society is confronted with its extinction, our machines are confronted with the utopia with work without end, and the machine overtakes us. So machines also replace Sisyphus, and are condemned like Sisyphus to push the rock up the mountain and have it roll back down. So a new installation of this series is a robotic performance with a robot making drawings with thousands of pills. And you can visit this on Friday afternoon or Saturday. The exhibit is free, and I shall be standing by there then. This current version is for collective exhibits and festivals, but for us, the next step for this project is the realization of a broader installation with a bigger project with more than the robot. So this robot installation is just the start of a broader exhibit, and we are currently looking for partners, producers, and diffusers. And we have partnerships and looking for extended partnerships. So let me introduce the complete version of the installation so that we can introduce the topical approach to this exhibit, which is entitled The Automatic Society. We shall have other installations that we have imagined. So the robotic performance of Perpetuity 2 will be presented in March in Madrid at the Teatro del Canal, and it's entitled Machina Organica. I think that's the title. So in the space of the exhibit, a robot is located in the center and makes drawings of abstract drawings with pills, thousands of pills, and it is reproduced in a simplistic way based on the rules of the synaptic work. So each wave is constituted of each of the 4 colors that are presented of the pills. This performance only exists on a very, very long timeline that escapes the visitors. So the robot makes this task and works with or without the public present. And the public, when it is present, perceived a suspended robot, a metallic structure that moves with very precise, almost gracile, very elegant moves, and looks like an animal. And then when the visitors come and look at the surface of the drawing in detail, what they see is they perceive the constitution, the organic constitution made of those 3 colors on a perfect black matrix. So it's an anthropomorphic performance that stages choreography and a series of sculptures are around this robot placed at equal distances, so elements that are placed around the element, and you'll see that at La Friche. And they're distributed over space, making a big circle, busts of sleeping people. And you see that those faces are made of those pills, and these busts are of sleeping people, and busts made of sleeping pills. And the faces are slightly so the faces are distorted, and these are the sum of gestures and made in the different phases of this of sleep, and modeled. And on the white walls, you find enormous paintings made of electronic paintings made of ecstasy pills with a logo of a different type of car. Cars that are sold for the selling of these drugs, of these pills. So a micro object is turned into a macro, so you perceive the grain and the tridimensional volume in perfect detail. Like a drug in the body, these objects take up space in the outside. Since the beginning of the project, it was important for us to have a space for exhibiting this and several media for to reflect the reflection. The robotic performance had to be extended into other forms of installation, so the public shall have 3 layers of reading and interact with the robot performing at the center of the space. And then so the sleeping bus made of the sleeping pills, and the last narrative reading is of an illegal drug that comes from a counterculture, that comes from a catharsis, automated culture that finds its catharsis through drugs. So now let me tell you about the topic of this exhibit. That shall be called the automatic society. So our point here is that technology has invaded our lives, and that lead to automation, the action of making automatic tasks and the series of operations that are the base of industrial revolutions. We always want to see that as a tool for progress, but then what we find is that not only are human tasks still here in spite of mechanization and the apparition of automation, but on the contrary, we have to still struggle against alienation through work that is more and more repetitive. So the philosopher Bernard Stiegler found that the automatic society based on general and pervasive automation, industrial automation has so the whole point is the fear of work that is expressed by this automation. So what we define as a robotic eye aid for workers is actually a device for controlling and streamlining the work of each worker in order to increase productivity, and defining throughout our lives, and all the while having a discourse of progress for humanity, just enslaving workers. So these are not autonomous intelligences, but algorithms that enable the automation, full automation of each of our activities and gestures. And these algorithms must be fed constantly and massively by digital labor that is extremely extremely fragilized because work is completely divided and split into tiny parts, and for the benefit of the GAFAM. So this is the fantasy of full automation that has been developed from the ages of the early days of terrorism, and threatens the threat of the replacement of man by machine. So this implantation of machine in all aspects of our lives is actually appears as a deliberate strategy, or a deliberate will. So the project of our exhibit is reflect on the techniques of automation and how the existing discourse from automation that has fed our imaginations and the singular history, or the single history that we're going to present, illustrate the mechanism of alienation. So in automatic society, what we want to do is provide an imagination that shows the robots with algorithm, the licit and illicit drugs, and the industrial environments. And the aim for us is to produce, once again, a narrative that is distorted and broken to pieces through the prism of automation. There.
Thank you, Felix. And now I would like for us to welcome Pierre Coric. The work of Pierre Coric is a mix of different practices, technical and technological navigation, software creation, and creation of textile material. And this is part of the ephemeris installations and performances that are revealing the everyday life, which is kind of distorted, and it actually allows us to understand his perception of the world. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anouk. So just as she has already explained, this is this is one of the portraits that I'm using here within the context of the collaboration that Anouk has presented previously. Okay, can we start the presentation? How can I do this? Thank you very much for this help with the slides, and thank you very much for this presentation. So, a semi-secret conspiracy of hidden science. This is one of the artworks that I'm presenting, and I would like to tell you a little bit more about my practice and what I'm doing. Well, I believe that I would like to say that I'm using the technology that requires a lot of codes and a lot of IT tools, and right here, in order to reveal different phenomena and so on, to modelize and create the patterns and so on, different conceptions, and to make it tangible, to make it material. this is what is very interesting for me, to create objects with which the audience will be able to interact. So I'm taking this example of the telescope, well, meaning the stars, the galaxies, and everything. This is something that exists for years and years, for centuries and centuries, but we did need some time in order to be able to view some of them, to create the telescope and to be able to see some of them. And I believe that here, the science and the technology, they really can have this same approach as a telescope, so we can basically discover some things that up to now we weren't able to see, we weren't able to discover. Though sometimes I'm doing exactly the opposite thing, meaning that I'm basically putting some codes in the nature, like a big picture, which is a very colorful picture that is consisting of a lot of codes and things that we cannot really see all of them. So I would like to start by showing you a project that I started in 2018, which is called AAZZZZZZ, and this is quite a simple mathematical tool, which is a series of books. And we have here all the combinations of all the letters, and it actually starts with AAA and it finishes with ZZZZZZZ. And we actually have all these combinations that appears right here, everything that is commonly possible. And you can see here all these ideas, they appear in zoom here so that you can see what this idea means. So we have different like tool, Tony, Tomb, Tovi, Toon that appear here, Togo. So this is something that appears on the table with some red pencils, and I'm asking people to surround different words, and this is something that basically moves from one to another linguistic context, and the work basically travels from this box that is represented by the table. So the table is what you are able to see here with what is presented there, and the idea is basically to show it this way. And here you can see there is this very tiny book. We have the small book, the middle book, and the very big book. The one is the 2-word letters, the middle one is the 3-word letters, and the biggest ones are the 4-word letters. And this is actually something that we have created in order to be able to transport it easily. And I have different exhibitions actually that we also have for some of them the version for 5-letter words, and this is one of the versions of a very big crossword. And I have used it as a departure point for other performances. For example, this one in Warsaw with Atkayan. She's the artist, and she's basically using all the combinations of the letters of the Polish alphabet from AA to ZZZ, and she's basically is all printed on this ribbon, and this ribbon is in the space, and she was singing these words, and people were basically participating in this analog karaoke. And now I wanted to talk to you about this project because this is something that I have done this summer as we wrap it around those woolen wings. And this is coming from a very simple idea. So basically this is the code that I used in order to make visible something that is absolutely important, which is the DNA, because the code is something that composes every single living being. It composes us. This is the ADN. Oh, I don't know how exactly we can open it in the PDF. Oh, okay. So this is a part of the DNA sequence that I have visualized through the codes that are very easy, because normally DNA is composed by 4 different molecules that are brought together through the code that has the information that creates a living being. And basically I had this idea to create this huge woolen piece. And this is what I have here. And this represents this DNA molecule, and it's alterated through this sort of aquarium that you can see here. And it is stored here in this aquarium and in this part that is covered. And well, this is something that will be eaten by moth during 10 years or 20 years, and this is the idea here, in order to see what will happen with this later on. But this is quite a recent invention of mine, and I'm still looking for a place for a venue that will basically welcome this particular artwork, and I would like to leave it there for some time and to see what happens with this wool and how it will be eaten by the moth over time. It's also very interesting with this artwork to look at different spheres that are not very close together, like the textile and the IT domain, because indeed they are sharing certain aspects and the common history as well. This is something that is related to the collaboration of the generations of scientists and artists, but also craftsmen, who made possible the discovery of the DNA molecule, but also it's interesting to be able to visualize it, and it's something that is very recent in our history. It's a little bit like the telescope, because this is a tool that allows us to see all this information, and it's only very recently that we have the tools that are necessary in order to be able to see it. And I wanted to show you this portrait of Grace Hopper, and he is the scientist who worked on the computer. He's a computer scientist, and one of the anecdotes in his career is like, who is the person who met the very first bug, who found the very first bug. The very first bug, this was the insect that was stuck in the computer on which he was working. It was stuck in the relay of this computer. And this was actually a very interesting anecdote, because this bug became basically a bug, an error that we later on had in the IT. And this is part of the collective history that we have. And the bugs are basically following us for generations and generations. And tissue is the same thing, because our generation has created tissue materials with cotton, with wool, and so on. So we have this history that includes also the lamp, that includes also the moth, and we have all this common history here. And one of the myths came from there, and someone has thought about this computers on which we're working, and probably one of these moths will also think one day that the computers on which we're working is also something edible. And this is another project that I'm working, that I have worked on in Marrakesh in 2018, and it represents some curves that are coming from the left to the right of the screen, and this is the sum of the rain that has fallen during 1 year. So we have several years here, so this is the sum of all the rainfall that was here, and we have 63 years that have been registered in Marrakesh, which is why we have this geometrical data per city. And I was actually wondering how exactly we can show this data that is presented here, and I believe that the more something is present, the less we see it. It's the same thing with rain. It is raining, but we almost never really notice it. And I believe that it's important to look at this data in a tangible way in the time, throughout the time. And this is how I created this and this structure of 1.5 meters approximately, and each of them consists of 12 cylinders, and each cylinder corresponds to a month, and the size of each cylinder corresponds to the rainfall in this particular month. So right now you're seeing the installation that is right now currently being presented in Marrakesh, and I have represented it in a shape of technical drawings, because unfortunately we cannot really produce sculptures right here, which is why it's just shaped as drawings. But right now we are working with the craftsmen of the city in order to create this tower that will be made of wood of 1.58 meters or something like that. And I actually put right next to it this lady who has approximately the same height as this tower. And we actually looked at this 63 years of rainfall in Marrakesh, and we are able to basically do it in size that will be acceptable here. And for us, it's an idea to be able to collect the data that will be similar to this data, and thus to open a dialogue on this topic that is extremely present in the local context of Marrakesh. But we were also able to see that it was also very interesting for Belgium, because we see that the climate changes, and we have had a lot of rain last summer in Belgium. And this way we can basically observe the different effects of the climate change and different issues that arise from here. Well, right here you can see these two pictures. So first of all, it was very interesting to look at, let's say, the date of birth of someone and the place of birth of someone, and then had this line that will reflect all the rain that happened there, starting from the birth of this person. And very quickly, I also wanted to show you the MMM project, Methodical Meaning Machine. That's my new project, and it actually originates in the offer that you were able to see before, or probably you will see this evening. And I actually was looking for the mechanic counters for the artwork by Rosalind, and I am showing here the speed flop display, and this is the display that is used in the airports and in the train stations. And the idea for me here was to create some sort of a clock, a permanent clock from here, and this goes back to the idea of the perpetuity that I have mentioned before, that of eternity. So it's actually presented as a line right now, and I can give you a link so that to explore it if that is what you want. So basically, it actually will show the January 31st, 2023. And the time as well. So you can basically see that in 1 second, the screen on the right will be increasing, and we can transmit the data, the date beforehand, and create it in this logics, and to create like a clock, an eternal clock here. So that's what I wanted to make with this project. And I also have this page that will have all the dates and times that will appear this way. So that's what I wanted to present. That's it for my projects, and I wanted to finish with this one, but that's for now is just a picture. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you, Pierre. So now let's go to Quebec now, where, as Matthew said this morning, MIAN is imported from Quebec from our honor guest in 2018. So it was really it just makes sense to have Quebec people among us, even though it's remote because of conditions. So the first is Ali Sorensen, who was greatly influenced by musical practice, DJing. So his practice is the art of remix, so without falling into spoofing or repetition. So we want to highlight the intelligence of the originality at an era of prolific. He's a prolific artist with ZKM, Sonic A, the Biennale Internationale d'Art Numérique in Montreal in 2020. Hello. So for me, I had planned for my presentation for an international audience, and it's broadcast on the web. So I had my presentation into English, but I can change and. So I initially intended to do it in English. Je vais maintenant passer à l'anglais pour.
Thank you for inviting me for this panel. So, of course, a 10-minute. Oh, damn. Yeah. All right. So, a 10-minute presentation to summarize my career over the past 25 years is quite a challenge. So, let me jump right in. And so, in essence, I would say that my practice is in contrast with the trend of identity politics. I'm not tapping into a strong sense of belonging to a unique or specific group or community, but rather my focus has been to put forward a fluid identity, one that moves in time and responds to current issues that chronicle the time I'm living in. And so, from 1997, my fascination with fluid identities has mingled with electronic media and the internet to address how online culture changed my perception of identity and how it was possible to become someone else online and even to lose my sense of self. So with this frame of mind, I created this first work entitled Net Persona, which is kind of like a fractal self-portrait. So in the details, we also see my image composing the bigger face. And this installation, this is a still from an animation inside an installation called Ego Not, which was also made in 97, The Emperor's New Clothes in 98, and Face Feedback in 1999. These were all made, signed under a different pseudonym. So like Anonymous, Anyone, this is signed by everybody, and so on. So by the time I moved to London in 1999, I had enough material to organize not a solo show, but a collective exhibition all by myself. And so I organized a group show of all my alter egos entitled Self, Else Self. So else being an anagram of self. But as I said earlier, this approach to fluid identities was not really on trend, not in fashion in the art world. On the contrary, I found an increasing number of exhibitions were focusing on fixed identities and fixed race and nationalities and gender positions. So at the same time, I thought quite strange that artists were increasingly required to show in international uh, exhibitions and speak to audiences around the world. And perhaps this is why I started diverting my attention to not the white cube of the gallery, but the black box of club culture. And I thought this offered a better channel, a way to channel my art um, in in a global mix of cultures. So that was what I was interested in. And so after changing my artist name once more to VJ Anyone, I started working alongside DJs to deliver the VJ performances. And eventually I presented my own audio visual projects, live audiovisual projects in media festivals like Tate Britain, ICEA. This is at the Konzerthaus Museum in Vienna, as well as Opus VJ. There's a festival that was not so far from this conference. It was organized at La Friche Belle de Mai in Marseille in 2006. And so this VJing experience is actually what led me to express, to call my art remix art, and to apply the same remix method. I eventually transitioned back to the White Cube of art galleries in 2009. And my first artworks in this direction were film remixes called No More Heroes, where I deleted all the footage where I could see or hear the leading actor in a blockbuster movie, and I pasted the remaining pieces together. So as a result, the remixed feature film looked more like a short film, because a 2-hour movie like The Matrix without Keanu Reeves all of a sudden was reduced to a 20-minute edit. So after moving back to Montreal in 2010, I started a doctoral study and drafted a dissertation entitled The Material Condition of Immaterial Art. And this is where I started being very aware of the conceptual implication of my practice. And this is why I think instead of sampling from pop culture and cinema, I started sampling directly from contemporary art to remix the visual signature of established artists, creating remix works like Mapping Buren, Video Pistoletto, and Fontana Mashup to generate a détournement from the iconic works and to express the visual language in a way that was not yet explored by the original artists. And so with Mapping Buren in 2010, I projected the flat pattern of Buren's vertical lines onto volumes and distorted the video image of the occupied space. So those volumes in the back and the video. So this is the same volumes as the preceding slide, but with the video projection on top. And this is another composition, the same in a corner. And with the Video Pistoletto, instead of breaking mirrors like Michelangelo Pistoletto, I broke LCD screens where the liquid crystals in the video display, when I broke them, they splashed through the shattered glass while still remaining partly sensitive to the video signal. This is a screenshot. And with Fontana Mashup in 2018, I lacerated not monochrome canvases, but oil on canvas reproduction of modern art and classical masters, handmade by Chinese copy artisans. And all these breaking and cutting gestures were delivered as performances in front of live audiences. And so my next series involved another form of destruction, but not directly from my own hands, because I addressed the human impact of ecological systems by remixing the iconography of American painter Peter Haley, also hinting at the pixelated landscapes of Minecraft. And the first round of works were this way exhibited in 2020 and 2021 and under the title Panorama of the Anthropocene, to overview different sectors of the global economy, from intensive farming to industrial factories and technologies planned obsolescence, which all contribute massively to impact our environment. And then a second round of exhibition is now underway called Capitalocene. So from 2022, I expanded a number of works, remixing Peter Haley, but with this new title. And here I pointed to a smaller number of culprits causing the ecological breakdown. So instead of pointing to the whole of humanity with the title Anthropocene, with the title Capitalocene, I pointed to the so-called 1%, to the capitalist class as the new culprits. So these artworks were produced using a wide range of materials, including paper, canvas, video animation, and installations, but also NFTs. And so I was able to distribute these works online in virtual museums while under the strict restriction of a curfew and other sanitary measures at the height of the COVID crisis. And so for 2023, if all goes well and no other crisis comes to interrupt my plans, I'll be working on a new series called Zombie Capitalism, to portray capitalism as a kind of an undead system that is blindly walking towards a zombie apocalypse, if you will. And so that's kind of what I'm up to at the moment. And I guess that's all I've got time for. So thanks very much for listening.
Merci, Oli.
Thank you, Oli. And right now, I would like to give the floor to Catherine Mélenchon. Hopefully she will be online with us, connected, and the time to get connected, I would like to explain to you that the practice of Catherine Mélenchon is interested in the intersection of the natural and the technological, and more recently, she has been exploring the non-human beings agency. She has a master degree in arts of the Centrale Saint-Martin in London, and she has a bachelor's degree in digital media from UQAM in Montreal, Canada. And her work has been exhibited in Canada, in the USA, and in Europe. Do we have Catherine with us online? Great. So I give the floor to Catherine Mélenchon. Hello, everyone. I would have loved to be with you physically present in Marseille, but right now I'm talking to you from Montreal, and I will be presenting you my practice. And more precisely, I will be talking about two important artworks that I have developed recently. I will share my screen with you, and hopefully it will work. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen. I believe that this is the case. Thank you. So yes, my name is Catherine Mélenchon, and I am developing a corpus of artwork, which is a digital artwork, and I am very much interested by the intersection of the natural and the technological, and it's been quite a while, 10 years approximately, that I'm interested in it. Just to talk to you briefly about my journey, I have had a bachelor's degree in digital media, and then in the digital arts, I was able to participate in Electra and to have a lot of experience there, which is why I would like to thank you very much for having offered to me this opportunity to participate here. And also, I have had the Master of Fine Arts in Central St. Martin's in London, and I have also exhibited my works in different venues, modern art venues, and so on. Well, I have also participated there with a lot of different artists that I have met there. And I can just say that my very recent participation was in La Nuova XX in Paris, which was organized by the Welling Center in Brussels. And I have had the prize for one of the artworks there that I will showcase to you a little bit later. And I also have had this prize for the modern art in Canada. And I will be also nominated to this prize this year. And in the Collège Antique here in Montreal, I was also working with them in order to create some public artwork. So what you can see from my practice, what you can see here is that I'm getting as close as possible to what can be the format that I'm using in my practice. So when I was doing my master's degree, I was very much interested in this scanography. You can see it basically here. So there is this very marked interest that I have for nature. So it was important for me to explore the genre of the dead nature and to see how exactly this can be aligned to the technological tools. So you can see this group, and we have the interest of this practice that appears through the movement of this movement that reminds us of surrealism. And it actually talks about the fleeting moment with the technology that is present here. So here you have the overall view of this dead nature, nature morte, that is presented. So this is the artwork that is just represented. And right here, this is just a parallel axis, I would say, and this is something that reminds a little bit the photogram, because for me, the scanography is the evolution of the photogram in the black room, in the traditional black room. And whenever I'm doing my scanography in a certain place where there's a lot of light, I am trying to put I don't know, put something on my head in order to limit this light that will come to my scanography. So now, for my practice, I'm selecting natural specimen. I am also selecting very special places. So very often the dead nature that I am representing will be with relationship to a certain landscape, to a certain place that will be in relation with the specimen that I have selected. And well, this is something that I call the creation of the digital seeds. And then these digital seeds will be planted in the physical or the digital soil. And just to give you a couple of examples, I will show you this, and then I will also show you the dead nature, the nature morte that I will be showing here as a printed something. And this is something that we have created in 2019. And you probably already know that in Quebec, in Canada, we are expressing all of this very strongly. So we have all the four seasons that are expressed very strongly: the spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And because this is very strongly represented, I'm using this technique as well in the nature morte technology in order to remind that the time flies. So here I'm coming a little bit closer. So throughout my collection process, I have had this little slug that came here, and it was part of some plants. It was perched on some plants, and I actually used it in my editorial process because it is moving. It is moving, and it is part of this nature morte that I have here. Right here, there's another example. So whenever I'm talking to you about the digital seeds, I'm digitalizing plants, and I will be planting them, for example, here in into the textile that I will manipulate, that I will take photos of, and then I will print this picture on the photographic paper. So there's this idea to replant the plants that I have scanned in some other physical material. So it's like a loop between the digitalization and the meeting of the physical world, and then the return to the digital world once again. So there is always this ongoing loop. So right here you can see this engravement that was done on the ceramics, and it was engraved by Lazare once again. But here the engravement was done on the mirror. So this is a series that we have created, and once again you can see nature morte, but it is silhouetted here, outlined here. So it actually remains here only in this aspect. So what I was interested in here is that we can see the artistic approach here, and it actually explains the title, the distance that separates us from our essence. So the distance that really separates us from our essence, that was our way of treating the nature in this way. So we basically are creating everything starting from here, all the perception and everything. So right here, that's another interaction that I have transformed into a piece of art. This is a nature morte that I have created, and we can see it in another material representation that you can see on the screen right now. Now, I would like quickly to talk to you about two important categories of artwork that I would like to present to you. So the very first one is called The Parliament of the Living, and probably you have read James Bennett. James Bennett is a writer that I'm very much interested in, and he is basically talking about the agency of the living. And right now, my practices are very much interested by the intersection of the natural and the technological. And here, when we're talking about this non-human beings agency, that echoes very much with it. So in this Toward the Parliament of the Living, in this artwork, this is something that I'm presenting at Electra, and we actually had to report it because of COVID, because it was selected for the Electra back then. So what you can see right now on the screen is this little aisle of plants, and we have multiple plants that are present there, and some of them are actually put right here separately. So you can see there are 4 screens here, and in front of each screen there is a connected plant. So here we can see the 3 of the screens that have been presented in Brussels, that exhibition that was going on from November 3rd to December 21st. And here you can see a little bit better the plant that is looking at itself, that it's looking at its representation, ephemeris representation that I will be talking to you about in a while. So I will explain to you how this is created. So it's actually very interesting for me to visit each and every one of these representation of these plants that are connected in order to discover why some plants have sensors. So if we go and look at each and every one of them, we see, let's say right here, the plant that has sensors, that has probes that are measuring its biorhythm. So this is a way to measure how this plant reacts to certain environmental settings, let's say human presence, movements, wind, and things like that. And the plant is very sensitive to all of this. Well, of course, this is not a scientific translation. Nevertheless, this is also a way of showing that each plant has a biorhythm and has its own way of reacting at the elements that are in its environment, because each and every one of us has their own rhythm. And we have some actions and so on, but the plant also is reacting in a more subtle and calm way to all the actions that are carried out around it. And now I'm representing the animation and this plant that is basically moving very, very slowly, barely visible. This movement, but we have these changes of rhythm little by little, and as far as the biorhythm changes for the plant and something changes at the level of the plant, the animation will change as well. So this is something that basically makes us think about the control and extraction between wonder and indifference, gestures of preservation and idealization. So it's very important for us to get inspired by these reactions of the plants on different elements, by the way that they are reacting in a calmer way. And we are coming even closer, so I will explain to you briefly how the animations are created. We actually have 3 different props. We have photogrammetry, professional photogrammetry. We have the most realistic models that are constituted and created through this method. Then we have the amateur photogrammetry, which is done with a free app on my phone, so you can see the models of the pictures colors that are a little bit grayed out, and the translation is a little bit less reflective and a little bit less true. And finally, we have the third mode of capturing all of this. And what is very interesting for me is to present the three of them in the very same universe. And it's actually very interesting to put them all together, but at the same time, I'm putting them all together in order to see the relationship between different plants that we see on each image. So this is something that is that tells a lot to people who have a lot of, who have enough budget and who are working with these technologies, scanography and photography and so on. And all of this is actually to offer a different hierarchy and a different reflection on our social relations and our organization in the society. Now, I'm also presenting this project that you see right now, and that was presented right before COVID. And in this version, I have explored the relationship of the animation that is right here, showcased. So we were basically trying to avoid for people to be in the closed space. But as you can see, I don't know whether you can distinguish it in the picture. We actually have this red wire that is right here that basically puts a little limitation that can exist between the animated picture and the ground. So the ground around the gallery where the animation was, I basically collected a lot of objects, of plants. I also had some crabs and some squirrels that are part of this nature morte. So all of these objects that I have found, they are basically around the screen that we have here. And in winter, actually what happens here is that with rain and with the integration of the plants, the soil, the pH of the soil will change. And the soil is basically changed here. So once again, we can see here that there is this relationship that shows us the biorhythm of different plants. And the work of art is basically changing and it's evolving constantly. So now I'm showing you, this is the pH that is changing, the pH of the soil that is being measured in real time. So these are the devices for that. So these are just additional details for this animation project. I was actually suggested to not show the videos in order just to make a presentation so that to invite you to go and see these animations online, if this is something that interests you. And then another interesting project that I have here is presented right now on the screen, but this will be presented this autumn during this exhibition at the Foundation Gratem. So this is another absolutely magical venue in Montreal. And this is another topic that I'm very much interested in. So we are coming closer to this particular artwork. So once again, we have plants, and the plants, the fern is planted here, and this fern comes from the woodland or sometimes has been imported and is exotic, and they're put in relationship with the fern that is represented on the screen that comes from the nature morte that I was able to reconstitute through the scanography, the ferns that are around the exhibition space. And I actually would like to put them in perspective, to be able to compare them, to see the ferns of the woodlands that we have growing abundantly around the venue, and also the ferns that were planted and that grew up somewhere at home, that are very sensitive to the watering, and that live in their small flower pots that don't have really this experience of the change of seasons, and they don't have this experience that wild ferns do have with the change of season, with leaves dying and then being reborn. So they have this relationship with the nature, which is much more wild and with respect to those that are presented here on the screen. So right here, I'm showing the ferns, extraordinary ferns that are very high, and they are present in the park that is right around the venue of the exhibition. And here is my representation of the fern that are growing here. So we can basically see in the winter and in spring there is a huge contrast, because the first photo shows summer and the second photo shows winter. So you can see the difference. And right around the venue, I was able to take these photos, and I was able also to measure the pH level of the soil, because fern flowers, they have fern plants, they have their seeds, and the data, the pH data is measured, and then it is sent to the gallery where the exhibition takes place. And you can actually see how it changes over time. So all this data is basically sent and it appears inside the artwork, and the artwork is basically modified immediately, and it's done in real time. So you can see here this very happy encounter among the ferns, the real ferns, natural ferns that are planted in front of the screen, and the naturemort that I have created on the screen. So I would like also to quickly talk to you about the very last category of my artwork. And so this is the category that is a little bit at the very early stage of all of this, and this is augmented carpeting. And here I'm working with a cactus flower, and it actually flourishes once a year somewhere in spring. So you can see this cactus that is right in front of the artwork that has been created for it. And I have created it by doing this iconography of its own flowers and its own branches when it was flourishing. And it actually flourishes for one night only. And sometimes there are many flowers for those who have this experience, sometimes less. So I have found out that this is a plant that represents really very good the ephemeris aspect of our life. And this is a very recurrent term that we can find when we're talking about nature morte and when we're talking about different technologies that are becoming obsolete really quickly. And here I was citing one of the nature morte that was created by Jacquard Numérique. And I'm here, I'm getting closer to this very important point of this artwork, and the interest for me here was that I was experimenting with thermochromic inks. So when you are talking about nature morte, you can see also that they are moving. So this weaving is activated here, and I will explain to you how exactly I do this. But what we can also see is that the flower on the left or probably on the right appears. If it appears on the right in Zoom, I don't know. But for me, it's on the left, and the flower is very yellow. And the moment when we're watching it, it is actually activated. And the other flower has to be activated as well. And this is basically the idea of the metamorphosis, this clock that is constantly ticking, constantly evolving. But once again, I would like to invite you to go and discover this installation, the animation, as well as the video that you have on my website as well. Right here you have the overall view in the format that is called black box. And also, I would like to explain to you how the nature morte is activated. So what you can see here on the picture on the right, there is this window, and this window has the probe that measures the level of the light. And throughout the year, I was measuring the degree of light. So either sun was very present, and if the sun was very present, of course the flowers would open in the nature morte, and they will open quite quickly. And when there were some clouds or it was already getting darker, the flowers would be closing. So what you can see at the very bottom of this picture are the wires. So we have the wires that connect different probes and also the Wi-Fi. Through the Wi-Fi, we are sending this data. And we have this view in this more lit frame that allows me to adopt the nature morte and create this particular form of experience. And once again, what I like here is to create this relationship between nature with which Nature Morte was created, but also for which this Nature Morte was created. So the artwork is not only created for the humans, it can also be created as a portrait of the cactus. And I'm showing the cactus its portrait that I have created. And finally, to conclude, I would like to underline the fact that I have presented my artwork together with the artwork, with this scanography that has been done with a manual scanner, and it actually was done when I was in London. So I was scanning flowers and plants outside. So this was the scanner that allowed me to walk outside, because this is something that is battery powered, and it actually is the basis of the evolution. And at the same time, because you're working manually outside, you'll have a lot of different artifacts, digital artifacts that appear here. But this is something that reminds me of the framework that can be present here. And the idea here is that this framework looks like a weaving, and it actually reminds me that the digital everything comes from the technology of the weaving, and little by little we were able to come up with the weaving as a craft, and then little by little from this invention and related to this invention appeared the digital art and everything that is digital. So I believe that it is very interesting to put them into perspective, to show this relationship between this frame that is clearly the frame, like a weaving frame that appears in the digital scanning still now. So now to talk to you about what will happen in the upcoming year. So I will be doing this exhibition in this gallery. I will be also showcasing toward a Parliament of the Living in another gallery, so you will be able to go and see them if you wish. The galleries are written right now on the screen in this slide, so this will be in the January of 2024, and then I will show toward the Parliament of the Living in the Museum of Quebec in September of 2023. And right here you have my contact information, my email address, as well as my Instagram and my website. So it will be a pleasure for me to meet you if this is possible, and I will be delighted to talk to you a little bit more about my work. Thank you very much. I wish to all of you a very good day. Thank you.
Nous allons à présent conclure cette riche journée en compagnie du collectif créé par Anna Heiler et Nicolas Lapointe. Je ne sais pas s'ils sont déjà en ligne. 2 minutes. Du coup, pour les présenter, Anna Heiler et Nicolas Lapointe travaillent à la fois en sculpture et en nouveaux médias. Leur pratique artistique collaborative est basée sur une investigation des environnements web et des mondes associés aux jeux vidéo et aux technologies immersives. Ils ont récemment exposé au Sight and Sound Festival à Eastern Bloc en 2021, à Mutec Montréal également en 2021, à Zoom Out et Sortir de Zoom à Sporobol en 2022. Le duo est basé à Montréal, au Canada.
Bonjour tout le monde. Je vous remercie de m'avoir invité à vous parler aujourd'hui. Malheureusement, mon collaborateur Nicolas Lapointe ne peut être présent, mais il m'a permis d'utiliser une réplique virtuelle. En essence, notre pratique est inspirée par les jeux vidéo, par la nature et le technomysticisme. Nous travaillons ensemble depuis 2014 et je commencerai par vous parler de certaines de nos premières collaborations. Alors, cette part d'œuvre s'appelle CEP 1 et 2. C'est pour les matériels de Concrete, Electronics and Plexiglass, ou le béton, les électroniques et le plexiglas, ou l'acrylique. Nous avons trouvé une inspiration commune dans le mouvement minimaliste des années 1960. Nous voulions animer les structures sévères ou brutalistes en utilisant un minimum d'électronique. Alors, pour ces deux œuvres, ils contenaient des affichages d'ailes. Dans CEP 1, à gauche, avec l'acrylique jaune, la DEL affiche des données trop rapides pour être déchiffrées. En CEP 2, à droite, les formes de glyphes suggèrent la communication entre les morceaux de béton. Voici un aperçu des œuvres que nous avons créées en 2015 et 2018. On a fini nos bacs en 2015 et déménagé à Montréal. Pour les œuvres ici, nous nous intéressions beaucoup à l'espace virtuel et à sa relation avec le monde physique. Nous avons travaillé avec des écrans comme
So we work with
Fortnite,
screens. We played a lot with the expectations of technology at the same time, and for the lower part, no swim, no fun, no play, which is a reference to a science fiction book, Hyperion. We created bits of plexiglass that move very, very slowly, and it's not even visible. The movement is imperceptible, but it evokes the passing of time, of biological time, and it also plays with our expectations regarding technology. And in 2019, during our master's work, we had 2 residences in Laval, next to Montreal, and one in Girona in Catalonia. And both works talk about waste. Vanguard 1, which is a plexiglass tower, talks about a satellite. Vanguard 1 is the first a sample of spatial debris. And with the other one, Fable d'Or, we thought about the waste produced by tourism. For Vanguard 1, we got the inspiration from brutalist architecture. And so this work offers windows into virtual landscapes that are populated by satellite cyborgs. And for the other one, we created a video handbook that gives a timeline, archaeological timeline, and shows a virtual landscape made of object artifacts and architecture modeled in. And we also have fossilized water bottles and selfies present in the water. So this is a project that is quite recent for the Fonderie d'Allen in Montreal, and that was part of our master's and dissertation work in Concordia, DDTT. It's an application of augmented reality. It's a website, and it is also an installation with a performance. The topic is about relationship with consumption, technology, and anxiety. And in materials, it's a hot dog stand. And in the course of the exhibit, we served actual hot dogs of augmented reality. Thanks to an app, participants received a unique prognosis on their smartphone. And when we were not there, they were invited to consult the hot dog that was on the stand. So this shows you the application, the app on the left-hand side. And the websites of DOTD.net invites them to activate the on-site from anywhere around the world, invitation to visit this site. And it also has an archive, and it gives you a list of the fortunes that were made out of those sausages. This is another project with the Gallery Antoine Soloir in Quebec, the DDD, or Digital Distribution, which is DG Grievance Distribution. So we invite participants to buy a virtual space in this digital landscape of a digital graveyard. A distributor gives you a tombstone, acrylic tombstone, that then gives the instructions to lead the participant to his or her own tomb, and then they're invited to write a short epitaph and bury an image, a text, a song, or whatever that would be visible by the visitors of the site. This is an example of an epitaph that we received on the site. Which says, "Dear YouTube algorithm that does not know how to differentiate the fiction from the scam, wishing that a human would take over." So now we are working on projects that explore how we can, go deeper into digital. So this is called /Lec, a project inspired by video games, and it is supposed to create contact points between us and digital bodies. And for this project, participants can create an emote, such as emote /smell that would respond in an unexpected and random way. So for this project, we work with a Blender and Unreal, a maker of video games editor, and we also wish to explore the limits of empathy toward non-human agents, but also create funny works with a bit of humor, but at the same time address issues that are sometimes a bit ponderous. And we also have films. We're also keen to not hide the technology in our projects. So even if we created our own computers for this project, we let the cables plugged and visible, plugged into a rock. So we sort of play with nature and technology. So the last project that I'm going to present today is Data Letters, and it's a multimedia installation with a narrative video and a sculpture. The sculpture is made up of flips with masks and mirror. There is a system of cooling of the computer that circulates a fluid between the shapes. So the video that you see here in the upper part of the screen follows an ambiguous character that is teleported from the computer to a virtual space. So we tried somehow to play with films such as Matrix or the techno ideas, utopia related ideas. We play with that because we are sort of attracted, there's a attraction repulsion relationship. We are very interested in technology, and we at the same time we immerse that in our art, but we try to stay critical as well. So thank you, and I'm now going to stop the screen sharing. Thanks a lot. Thank you. So let us conclude this day. You can now go visit the exhibits, the Uchronic that are everywhere in Aix-en-Provence, and you'll have the list at the reception desk, and you can also see all the exhibits at the Musée Granet. So this evening, see you at Vasarely Foundation at 7:30. So second body at the Black Pavilion, Pavillon Noir, and let's see you at 9:30 tomorrow for the sequel to our roundtables, artists and what to do with the NFTs. We'll have a break. Well, before the break, we have the international market, and then after that, we shall continue on the same topic.